All right, so Kabbalah Explained Simply on the topic of quantum physics. Okay, so I am Gianni. Welcome. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas if you're celebrating. And thank you for being here. If you'd like to write into the chat, I'd appreciate it on whichever platform you're writing from or watching on. Just write your name, where you're from, and anything fascinating or questions you have about quantum physics. Now, so today we're gonna explain quantum physics simply, but we're gonna do it from the perspective of Kabbalah, because I'll give an example with my teacher, Dr. Michael Lightman. You know, he was a scientist, and Rabash, his teacher, his Kabbalistic teacher, he wasn't educated. He was very educated, but not in the traditional university, master's degree, PhD science sense. But Rav Lightman, Dr. Lightman, he could go to Rabash with any kind of principle that the physicists or scientists were currently talking about or discovered, and Rabash could explain it simply. He knew what it was talking about, even though he didn't maybe know all the math behind it or the history of the experiments or the terminology, but he could feel how these principles of the upper worlds, where if a Kabbalist attains the upper world, then they feel everything that is taking place on the level of our world, and thus they're able to explain these principles because they feel them from within. Okay, give me just 1 second. All right, so we're going to give kind of a broad overview of where we are, because usually quantum physics is considered one of the most confusing and perplexing and maybe even mystical aspects of science. Why? Because on the level of, well, this has been the quandary for the last maybe 100 years, that on the level of small stuff, and we're going to explain how all of this applies to us and quantum physics and Kabbalah, but on the level of small things, meaning on the molecular and particle level and atomic level, on these small scales, there seem to be strange laws of reality that seem even mystical. You have particles that can be in more than one place at the same time, for example. Or particles, somebody just won a few together. Scientists won the Nobel Prize this year in 2020. They won the Nobel Prize for proving entanglement and doing experiments with entanglement, which is where particles that are on one end of the universe can affect a particle that's on the other end of the universe. It doesn't really matter where they are. Once having been connected, they influence each other. And it doesn't seem to work like this on the level of big stuff. So not on the particle level, on our level, such laws don't seem to exist. And there are many such laws that are all related to this idea that particles behave differently than stuff at the level of our perception. So let's kind of see if we can figure out what's going on here. And let's do so by looking at the levels of reality that we know. We know that we have the still level of things, the level of rocks, which are made out of atoms and smaller particles. And we call this level the inanimate level, meaning it doesn't move, right? And what do we mean when we say that it's lifeless? We basically mean that it's not that there's no movement there, but the movement is at a glacial pace. And it's not by way of free choice, meaning we know that there are forces that these particles don't have any control over that actually move them and determine if they're going to connect into the molecules that can create the next level of reality, which is the vegetative level. And at the vegetative level, of course, there's also not free will, or at least not much free will, according to our understanding. And at the animate level, there's seemingly some free will. Okay, good. It seems like we just got Facebook to join us. So at the animate level, there's some level of free choice, but we know that there are principles that are maybe not so clear to us that are governing the relationships between animals. And okay, I'm just reading your chats here. I want to see what's going on here. Okay. Now, when we get to our level of reality, the human level, that's where things get a little bit confusing. When we get to the human level, it gets confusing. And as we work up this chain from the inanimate to the vegetative to the animal level, and then finally get to the human level, at the human level, we're really confused. And we're convinced that we have total free choice, right? And we kind of laugh at the levels below us, that we kind of know the behavior of animals. We know that they're subject to laws, that they're not really choosing much. They're governed by nature. At the plant level, it seems absolutely certain that it's totally governed by laws, and everything is predictable there. And that's why we can make crops and plan our crops and what's going to happen there for the most part. Unforeseen factors such as hail, storms notwithstanding. But at the inanimate level, we're super convinced and absolutely certain that everything is lifeless. And again, our definition of lifeless, by what we mean by this, is actually that there's no free choice. It's all governed. Glacially paced movements, if movements at all. But I'm going to suggest that maybe we're a little bit confused. And this might be the key to understanding quantum physics. So when we look at this level of reality, we understand that there is movement there. There are particles that are connecting. There are molecules that connect. And maybe, just maybe, when they're doing so, maybe there is life there, meaning maybe there is a feeling there, meaning at all levels of reality, even the microscopic, even the molecular and particle levels, maybe there is actually desire, but desires which are absolutely forced to do everything that they do. And perhaps what we have is just a question of scale, and that's what makes understanding quantum physics so vexing. That maybe here there are all sorts of emotions when the particles are connecting and molecules are connecting. Maybe for them it's like a whole romance, just like we make out of our lives an entire romance. And we can write poetry about it, about anything. We can write songs about how I'm getting my job, losing my job, falling in love, meeting my soulmate, having children, death, it's all one big drama. But maybe it's like what we see on the screen here. Maybe actually in the relationships between us, there are specific forces that are governing us, just like the tides, for example, are governed by gravitational pulls of celestial bodies. Perhaps those things are influencing us too, and we know that they do. And there's all sorts of unforeseen forces, unknown forces that are ruling us in each and every moment. What does this have to do with quantum physics? Well, there's this disparity, supposedly, right, between general relativity, meaning the way things appear to be at our level of reality, and what's happening at the quantum level. In our level of reality, boring, everything's just obvious, everything moves linearly, we know what to expect, right? There's no chance that in the next moment, I will quantum leap into another dimension. We just know it won't happen. But at the quantum level, it's possible. At the quantum level, and we'll try not to use any jargon or, we're not going to do any double slit experiments here or anything that you could just hop on another YouTube channel and, find out about that particular phenomenon in about 2 minutes. We're going to try to stick to what's really relevant to us. So at the quantum level, you can do those things. You can quantum leap into another dimension in theory. A particle is not here where Gianni is, for example. Rather, Gianni is in multiple states, all at the same time. Gianni is also functioning not just as a particle, but as a wave, and could be connected with, let's say, just to personify this, let's say that I was connected with my friend Bob. As kids, we grew up together as friends. And now that we're connected, now that we've been connected, we disappear and we don't talk to each other. We're not even on Facebook together. We have no contact with one another. And yet now, like we know is the case with twins, for example, there are anecdotals about this. But me and Bob having been connected, now everything that I think and do affects Bob, and everything that Bob does affects me, really in a impactful way. We don't feel that this happens in our world. However, on the particle level, it does. And that's what the Nobel Prize was for this year, for this phenomenon called entanglement. And particles apparently are affecting each other from across galaxies. So why is there this divide? And of course, there are different excuses, or different explanations, and they've been trying to explain this for the last 100 years because this drives physicists nuts. That there's one set of physics laws for big stuff, our level of reality, and another set of laws for particles. That's not cool. We need physics to work everywhere. And so we need kind of a unified field theory. So Kabbalah basically tells us that just like we were able to look at these different levels of reality, and I can kind of look down, the further away we get from the human level, the further away we get from us, the easier it is to understand, right? The animate level we understand a lot about. And it seems like they're governed by laws, but it seems like they also have some free choice. You've probably said bad dog in your life at some point, good doggy, bad doggy. So we kind of impart free choice to these beings. At the level of plants, you're probably rarely, if ever, angry at a plant, right? And then at the level of the still, you just know 100% there's no reason to, get physically violent with your computer or angry at it, because it's still, it's inanimate, it's lifeless, it has no free choice, no free will whatsoever. So as we move away from the human level and go degrees and degrees below us, we're kind of able to be, let's say, more objective. And we're able to observe some phenomenon there that, when we get to the particle level, is very strange. Now, Kabbalah suggests that there is, relative to us, a much higher degree, a degree that makes our entire perceived universe the size of a mustard seed relative to a galaxy or the universe. And that entire universe fits into that mustard seed. And relative to this universe, you have an upper reality, 125 degrees, 5 worlds, spiritual degrees. And these are huge, qualitatively huge. And from the perspective of this upper world, our reality is really inanimate. It's just like we view the inanimate level of our world, of planets and particles. And it's lifeless, meaning what happens here with us, there's absolutely no free choice. And it's just like we view these lower degrees of reality, that just like, for the atoms, maybe this connection here is a whole romance for them. Maybe they feel it really poetically. And maybe they feel themselves as having some desire of their own, right? And perhaps even free choice of their own. And maybe we're just like that at the human level. Maybe we erroneously believe that we have free choice, but really not at all. Really, we're governed in each and every breath by hidden forces. So to understand our place in the universe, really, we need to kind of we're never going to understand it by doing more research. There's a level in quantum physics beyond which we won't be able to research. We're reaching such barriers. We're reaching, the dark matter and the dark energy, which they say is most of the universe, and we just can't research this. And why not? That's because, like I said before, it's easier for us to be objective when it comes to these levels of things. We can be kind of objective about them, especially when we get to the quantum level. And then we can start playing with different experiments. Because in quantum physics, it turns out that the big problem is the observer, right? When you have quantum particles, a particle can be in many, many states at once, meaning it's a probability spectrum of probabilities that's described by what's called a wave function. And when we observe any particle, it collapses into a specific state, right? So until we observe it, the particles at the quantum level, they behave crazy, right? By mystical laws. But when we observe the particle, it starts behaving like regular. It snaps into a specific position. So, okay. So what's going on here? What's going on here is that quantum laws, let's say quantum laws, describe some of the true laws of reality. So all of those mystical, crazy seeming states that happen in quantum physics, like entanglement and quantum leaps and being in multiple places at once, These describe the general laws of reality, a very tiny, limited bit of reality that we can actually research thus far. And believe me, all of our explanations in science will be totally different in 5 years and 25 years and 100 years. They'll all change because we're going to understand more and more. But these laws of quantum physics are maybe reality, and the general relativity level of reality that we feel maybe is a particular of that general law that quantum physics describes. And our problem is one of scale, that we look differently at, let me put it differently. When the observer causes the particles in the double slit experiments, the quantum experiments, when he causes them to snap into a specific position, this is actually what we're doing all the time in our life. And we are pretty much like particles, only we're just confused about the laws around us because we don't see how we as observers are affecting the reality around us. And so if in quantum physics it said that, I'm just trying to monitor the chats as well. If in quantum physics it said that as soon as an observer comes into the picture, those particles, which can be anywhere and everywhere all at the same time, snap and lock into a specific position, in our reality, we don't experience that because in every moment I'm measuring. And for physicists, this is a very important principle. The principle, they always use this concept of measurement. As soon as you measure, you create the reality, essentially. And we are not in a position of being able to not measure. We're constantly measuring, but unconsciously. And if towards the particle level of reality, if towards these quantum experiments, we can sort of be objective and we can play different games of, is it being measured right now? Let's measure it when we're, have it be recorded if it got measured or not, and then we'll check if there's a difference when we're measuring or not measuring. We can play different games like that, and there are many experiments. But at our level of reality, we can't. And that's why we don't experience quantum principles in our life. Why can't we? Because we are what is called a desire to receive. We're the will to receive. And in this will to receive, I'm constantly in a state of measurement. What am I measuring? Because I don't feel that I'm really measuring anything the moment I wake up in the morning. But according to Kabbalah, my whole reality is being spread out before me by this act of measurement. And it's an act of measuring how much can I receive, from what, and how can I get away from anything that might harm or detriment my reception of pleasure, and how can I come closer to things that feel close to me and good and will feel good and make me feel pleasure. And so in each and every moment, there's this concept that physicists talk about that it's a very strange thing, right? It's a very strange phenomenon that we know that there's this thing called the Big Bang, right? By which everything spread out from a single point, including all of the matter, the space itself spread out. It's spread out, and inside of this space developed the inanimate, vegetative, animate, and finally the human level. And the strange thing is that no matter where you measure the point of this shattering or this explosion, it turns out to be inside of you. And physicists don't really understand, although of course there's always an explanation, but they don't really understand why that would make sense. That wherever I am in the universe, if I measure the point of the Big Bang, it turns out to be inside of me. And according to Kabbalah, this is actually the truth. This is actually not a crazy, miracle or mystical thing that wherever you'll measure the point of the Big Bang, it turns out to be inside of you. Because the whole reality is through me. It's being spread out before me. Now, inside of what's being spread out before me, I don't know why it's spreading like that. I don't know why it looks like that. But inside of what's being spread out before me, I can then start researching principles of quantum physics. I can research certain laws that seem to be taking place inside of all of that. But, and I have a quote here I wanted to read from a physicist where he says, in the last analysis, this is the Nobel Prize winning physicist Max Planck. He says, in the last analysis, we ourselves are part of the mystery we are trying to solve. Right? And then Niels Bohr says, when we measure something, we're forcing an undetermined, undefined world to assume an experimental value. We're not measuring the world, we're creating it. So those are physicists. And so that's the problem, is that what is, let's say this is my skin, what is behind my skin, I have no attainment of, absolutely no attainment of. I can go and talk to a therapist as much as I want. I will not understand my essence that is actually the projector through which this whole reality is being depicted before me. And then I, as a scientist, am going and trying to understand those laws. Is it quantum physics? Is it general relativity? But I actually need to understand myself first and the way in which I'm projecting things before me. Okay, and so we said we have a problem. The physicists tell us that when we measure things, we're projecting a certain reality upon them. And instead of seeing a variety of possible quantum states, we're seeing one specific state. And I'm also not controlling which specific state I'm seeing, right? I would like to see all good states and have my, dreams come true. If, let's say, my greatest dreams are one possible state, right? And I have a lot of other kind of crappy states that seem to lock into place. But they're all possible. My dream state, my good states, those are all possible too, but I keep locking into place very specific states. I'm collapsing the wave function of all possibilities into what I see before me, and then I live in that. So the problem is with measurement, right? And the fact that I'm constantly measuring. And I don't even realize it, that this is my quality. It's a quality of reception. That I want to always experience pleasure, maximal benefit, minimum pain. And this is how I'm deciding in each and every moment. And this is where my thoughts are directed at the next pleasure. How can I get it? How far away is it? And how hopefully far away are things that could get in the way of it? And can I do anything else to bring it closer to me or push further away the things that I fear? Fear because they will be causing me less pleasure. So this is the whole problem with Kabbalists, is that we need to understand, is there a way that I could stop measuring in such a way that is causing the whole reality to spread out before me in this specific way? All of the people, all of the plants, animals, the entire universe, I'm causing this shattered picture that is the Big Bang, if you will, that's really inside of me. I'm the point of this shattering, and I need to correct this shattering. And then, of course, I'll see a totally different picture of reality. Now, I can give you the answer very quickly. The answer is that if instead of measuring according to reception, I'll start measuring according to a different quality, the quality of bestowal, I'll experience a reality that is more like those quantum principles, right? The quantum principle of entanglement, for example, that two particles, once having been connected, can affect each other from across the universe. Why does this work? Well, because there is actually no distance, no time, no space. It's all an imagination that I'm having because, again, I am that source of the Big Bang. That Big Bang which spread everything across the universe. If we want to know the actual root of it, and we don't need to get into the mathematics of why, the root of it is actually hatred. That there are things that are more distant from me because they won't bring me any pleasure, and that there are things that are closer to me. So if I would behave, and it's all determined according to by which I can receive pleasure. So if I would behave differently towards reality, meaning if I would behave according to the way the upper force that created all of this, called the Creator, because when Kabbalists attain him, or it, when they attain it, they discover that it is actually creating all of our reality. And it has a different approach to the whole of reality. Its approach to reality is more like a mother towards her children. That which one do you love more? Impossible to answer. Mommy, who do you love? Me or my brother? Impossible to answer, right? Because it truly is equal, right? It's not the same because each one is totally unique, having nothing in common, really. They're actually, at the end of the day, completely sui generis, unique qualities. So mom loves all 10 children the same. And this upper force, this Creator, towards each and every particle of reality, all of which is desire, he has an equal attitude towards it. So me, if you can depict like a circle, I am at a certain place in the circle and I have a relationship to everything and I'm juxtapositioning everything in a shattering form according to which things bring me pleasure. I want to get away from what can cause me pain. While the Creator, if we depict it this way, is at the center of the circle, meaning equal towards each and everything, relating to them not in the quality of reception, but rather in towards the quality of bestowal. And towards each and everything, according to its ability to receive, this Creator wants to bestow to them. And so then, if we behave in this way, then we discover that in the whole of the universe, all of this actually belongs to me. These are my properties. And there are undiscovered universes. First of all, the universe, well, they used to think that it was infinite. And then later on, they decided that it was not infinite. And then now they think, again, that it's maybe infinite. So we'll go back and forth. And there's a reason why perhaps both are true from a certain discernment. But all of this universe, it's all my qualities. And towards it, I need to develop love. And if my love towards each and everything could be equal, meaning I just want to bestow. And I don't need to pull in any reception. I don't need to pull in anything from any particular one. I don't want anything from them. Like a mother, she does, what can you give her, or what can you give a teacher for the holidays? What can you give them? Just do what I've been asking you, get good grades. He doesn't need anything from you. If I can behave in this way towards reality, then I open up the upper reality. and it all becomes mine. And I discover that I don't need a spaceship to explore to explore anything. I can simply research all of this inside of myself. If I want to see if there's, life on other planets, whatever I want, I discover that it's all inside of me, and there is no distance. And that's why we see these phenomena of entanglement, right? Because really, and mathematically, of course, it works out, because really there is no distance. That is an imagination that I am having because of my property of reception. So this is why, and by the way, my relationship to all of history is the same, right? This is why physicists also have this crazy idea that there's no time. It's just an illusion. In the math, the time factor just drops out. It cancels out. And that's because time also doesn't exist. And that's why it's all up to me if I can rise above this desire to receive, which is my essence. This is the deep, dark part of me that I don't know about, that I can't research behind my skin. If I can rise above this, then I can transcend all of the historical states, going backwards and going also forwards, and discover that there's actually one final state that we're heading towards, a perfect state. It already exists. I can move towards it more quickly or more slowly, but it's all up to me. So also, another thing from quantum physics is this idea, it's this idea of dark matter, dark energy that composes most of the universe. They say, maybe 5% of the universe is actually the universe that we can see. And the rest of it is hidden from us. So this is basically because all of this universe, it all belongs to me. And it's all this vessel that is hidden to me right now, but which I need to reveal. I need to reveal this vessel. And the Kabbalists use this example of the king's palace, where it's filled with treasures, and the lights are out. Why? Because I'm a thief that wants to steal the king's treasures. And if I have the attitude of bestowal towards this vessel, then the lights can be turned on, because I'm not going to steal anything. So in short, this is the way that we discover the whole reality. And if you have questions, feel free to write in. I'll be happy to answer questions about anything that we've discussed so far. But this is what Kabbalists try to do, right? They try to transcend the will to receive, because the desire to receive in me is what is giving me a false perception of reality. And it's locking me into one particular experience, a particular experience of reality, which isn't necessarily a pleasant one, and locking me into a particular time and place with all sorts of unpleasant events. And all of this is because I live inside of this will to receive. And it's constantly depicting before me what is actually the source of this Big Bang, what spread out across the universe in the Big Bang. It's actually desire. So it's all parts of the desire, which is all that was created. This is what the Creator created. And that's why we said in the beginning that atoms, they also have a desire. It's a still level of desire with very little movement and very slow changes. And the vegetative, a little bit more developed desire, the animate more, and our desire more. And all of these are levels of my own desire that appear to me in the form of human beings, all different kinds, but all of these are actually my desires. And the vegetative and the animate and the entire universe, all this is my desire. But it's locked to me, it's closed to me. I can't explore it. And we also said that we can't know ourselves. Why can't we know ourselves? Because there's nothing in there to find. The Creator did a special trick with us, which is that he projected my desires before me in the reality. And now I'm supposed to research. I'm supposed to research my relationships to all of these desires. Are they relationships of reception or are they relationships of bestowal? Is there something that I can do to change my relationships to these desires? And that is actually the goal. That's the reason why the Creator created this Big Bang. So that I would see what is my relationship towards these desires, discover that it's the property of reception and not of bestowal, and thus not of the Creator's quality. And towards each and every particle in reality, I need to alter my attitude. I need to change my intention so that it's actually the quality of the Creator, the attitude that the Creator has towards all of these parts. Okay, so, I can just keep going on, but let's see if you have any questions here. So, Mark asks, hi Mark. Mark Lawrence asks, what is the first step to begin to bestow? So the first step, because think about it this way, that the whole universe that was created just for the simple fact that I need to have an intention to bestow towards the upper force. Because what was first created before our world and our whole universe, what was actually created was, and this is prior to the Big Bang, was just a desire. That's all that was there, one big desire to which, let's say, we all once belonged. But it was one thing, just it and the Creator. And the Creator wanted to bestow everything to this desire. All goodness. Just imagine. You feel like a Coke, boom, it's in you. You feel like steak, boom, bam. You want sex, food, family, money, whatever you want. All your desires, and many that we don't even know about because they're concealed from us for good reason, because we already don't know how to handle the ones that we have already exposed to us. So we get to start with small ones. But imagine a state where they're all revealed in the upper world, and it's just you and the Creator. And He's filling you with everything, and there are no limits. But at the end of this fulfillment comes a realization of, oops, wait, I'm not just in a king's palace filled with infinite delights. I'm not just in a pleasure palace, right? But there's actually someone who's giving to me. And okay, that's okay. He wants me to receive. So if He wants it, maybe I'll receive. But what I discover at the end of this reception is something else, that He also loves me. And this love, I don't have that in me. I can't return love. He created me as the opposite of Him. He did this on purpose. So He's the quality of love, bestowal, and I'm the quality of reception, and I don't have love in me. And this creates all of the cascading down through the spiritual worlds and then into a shattering we can call it the Big Bang. And then the spreading of this single bit of desire, this spiritual matter, throughout the universe, which we perceive as the universe. And all of that is just for the one simple reason that we couldn't return his love. And we didn't actually need to go through all of our development through the thousands and millions and billions of years and to make all kinds of technology. Actually, we could have made this, theoretically, could have made the correction much more quickly. We could have made this correction because it's so simple, right? Just when I feel pleasure, because my whole life is wanting to receive pleasure, when I feel the pleasure, I need to not simply feel it, because I have a problem. Look, if I drink this coffee, and we're in a spiritual broadcast here, you know, when I drink this coffee, there's a moment where I forget where I even am. It's such good coffee, right? And this is the most minuscule pleasure, right? And so what about bigger pleasures? How will I handle those? Am I able to drink it and remember the goal of creation and how to reach it and who it's for, where this pleasure is coming from? I can't. I forget. And this is what was discovered in the upper world. That when I receive the pleasure, I want to do it for the sake of the Creator, but once it's in me, oh my God, I'm just thinking about the pleasure. And thus the entire universe had to be created. And there is nothing else to do except formulate this intention. So how do we get to it then? How do we get to bestowal? Well, that's the whole wisdom of Kabbalah. And if you think about the entire creation of the universe just for the purpose of reaching the intention over the pleasure that the Creator wants to give us, which was the whole purpose of creation, is to give us everything, give us pleasure. Of course, this entails giving us the ultimate pleasure, right? Which is becoming like the Creator, because that's the greatest thing that can be. So becoming like the Creator means having the will to receive, but using it with the intention to bestow. So how, after this whole development down to our world, how do we become like the Creator and do this correction? And then we'll see that the whole universe rolls up behind us like a carpet. All of history, all of the worlds, they roll up behind us like a carpet. And we go back to that original state where it's just us as one vessel, one kli, with the Creator, Him bestowing to us. This is why we have this seemingly infinite universe, which it is actually infinite, because He created an infinite desire. And what we're really like, by the way, if you want to know what our true nature is that we need to correct, because I told you we can't, just go to some therapist and have it be explained to us or talk it through. We'll never get to it. What our nature is actually is like a black hole. So if physicists really want to understand black holes, we need to research our desire. Our desire is infinite. It's something that there's nothing else in it besides this black hole, at the center of which things simply disappear. And so in order to correct this, this is why the Creator didn't reveal to us all of our desires. I told you that we have a few desires here. We have food, sex, family, money, power, honor, respect, knowledge. These are very, very tiny. And if we would view these desires from the level of the upper world, like we said, that there's only a problem of scale here, that there's this massive, huge, important, sublime upper world. And if we would view ourselves from that level, we would see that we're not even really dealing with any pleasures yet. We're dealing with things that are they're pretty much equivalent to like a cow drinking water and than eating its grass. They're very teeny tiny pleasures compared to what's revealed on the next level. We need to start with what we have, with what is revealed to us. And what is revealed to us is that we need to correct just our attitude to the goal of life. Meaning, now that the wisdom of Kabbalah has told me that there is a goal of life, what steps do I take in order to reach it? How much am I willing to invest? How much am I willing to think about this goal of life? And let's say that I'm in an X-ray machine towards the upper force, that it really doesn't matter what I'm acting, what I'm doing. It matters how much I'm thinking about this. And by this, I'm basically demonstrating to the upper force that I want to think about it. I want to be in this. And it's like, say, a beast that I'm feeding. Let's say I have 2 dogs, and one of them is an evil dog. I have 2 dogs. One is an evil dog. One is a good dog. And the evil dog will eat me, and the other one will be my best friend. And the one which I feed, that is the one that is going to become strongest. So if I invest into my spiritual life, the good dog, every single piece of liver that I feed him, it's going to cause him to grow. Maybe I don't realize how it's changing, but this is called many pennies accumulate into a great sum. So even though I don't feel it, every broadcast that I join, every lesson that I join, every time I open up an authentic book of Kabbalah, I'm actually investing into my spiritual account. And it's said that there is one who attains his world in an hour. So there's no time, like the quantum physicists have understood. There is actually no time. There is a goal that we need to reach, a beautiful, sublime goal, an upper world that has everything we can dream of or can want. It has everything there, everything that the Creator wished to give to His creation. And we can reach it very quickly, relatively quickly. Okay, so we've spent billions of years suffering, and really it's before me in this lifetime to reach many degrees which exist in me that are on the way to the spiritual goal, that are on the way to this barrier called the Maxom, the barrier to the spiritual world, and then 125 degrees. And I'm progressing towards those. Right now I'm progressing as a baby progresses. That you can't remind the baby of when it didn't know how to stand. It already knows how to stand. When it knows how to walk, it doesn't remember that it could only stand. It's just living in that moment. We're like this, that we don't feel our spiritual development. But everything we invest into this direction is causing the upper light, this massive light that has developed all of the still vegetative and animate degrees. It developed them through all of their degrees. That's what actually forced the molecules to come together and the monkey to come down from the trees. And we now take an active part. We're part of this huge glacial system that is actually bringing us to the goal of creation. It's bringing us there, but very, very slowly. Just like at this level, the level of the still, the planet there, at the level of the still, there is movement, things are happening, and there is life there, there's desire, but it's very slowly being forced to do what it needs to do in the direction of creation because, hey, we need plants to come into existence. So you will connect. You don't feel like it, you don't want to, you will. You're going to do it. And then we need animals, right? And then we need humans. Well, nature also has a plan for us. It's the connection between all of us. When all of us will become connected, like an atom is connected. The particles there in the atom you see there, they're connected actually, but they're not solid the way we feel it. They're separated by light years according to their scale. We human beings will be connected by, not by hugging, but by an upper force which connects this Kli and fills it with the upper light. And this completes the plan of creation. So our only question is, when do we get to it? So we need to try to invest more, not abandon our life. We're going to go and enjoy our holidays now, our New Year's. We're going to have a party. We can enjoy all of that. But internally, we need to try to invest in our spiritual life as much as possible. And in each and every moment, we have an opportunity to invest there, to feed that good dog, right, that is leading us towards the purpose of our life. All right, so that's our show. Thank you, friends. We have a special broadcast now for KabU students, and so I'll see you on the Zoom. Happy holidays, friends, and thanks for being with us.